Okay, right. So we'll mainly focus on the parsha, but the idea is to try and tie it in also some themes, ideas. The time is obviously 3 weeks. The Mishnah Berurah in Tofkuf Mem Tes, when he brings the dinim beginning of Hilchos Tisha, he brings the following lashon of the Rambam. The Rambam begins with he sets out first of all the different fasts, the Tanesim, he says, Kol Yisrael misanim bohem, mne'atzorah shira bohem. All of Klal Yisrael fast on these days because of the tzoros which occurred on them, to arouse the heart to be aware and to think about ways of tshuva. And this should be a remembrance, a prompt to correct our negative, our bad ways. And actions of ours that were like our actions now, until it caused them and us that led to these sorrows. So the process is that we understand the need to do teshuvah, to correct those things that led to these things happening in the first place, that we perpetuate today as well. We will once again, basically do tshuva to correct our ways, and therefore he says the obligation is there's an essential need in these days to correct our actions, to examine our deeds. The ikka is not the tanis, as it says with the people of Nineveh in Sefer Yonah. Hashem saw their actions. Hashem saw their actions, not their sackcloth, not their fasting. The tanis is meant to be a preparation for tshuva. That's the whole idea. He says, it says those anoshim, those people, should say lochein. Therefore, when they fast, they waste their time, or they go around and have a pleasant walk. All they've done is they've taken the less important, they've lost the main idea. Can't just do tshuva. It's a mitzvah saying medivri anavim. These are mentioned in the Nevi'im to fast on these days. So you see from this Rambam that we fast, but the fast is a prompt. It's a prompt of tshuva, and it's a prompt to make us think and realize and reflect on the actions and the things that led to the events for which we are fasting. And if that's the case, there are two thoughts. Number one, I think, is that we need to think about what it is exactly we're supposed to be working on and correcting and everything else. That's very important. That's an introduction for the whole of the Bein HaMatzah and the whole of the 3 weeks. And the other thought which occurred to me is that if the Rambam describes the main focus of the Ta'anesim, and by extension this whole period, which is obviously bracketed by Shiva Sotams and Tisha B'Av, as a prompt towards Tshuva, and you really can see these 3 weeks as a preparatory stage for the Elul and the Yom Leroy, which is a different way of looking at the Bein HaMatzah, at the 3 weeks, but it fits entirely with what the Rambam's saying. And maybe it's the specifics that these 3 weeks are meant to bring out, the specific aspects that we're meant to do tshuva on, that allow us to prepare in the best way, so that we don't just arrive in Elul after the summer holidays without this preparation having been done. So this is a very different, if you like, perspective on the 3 weeks, and maybe there's something we can develop here. So let's begin in terms of the parsha. Really mainly going to focus on two aspects of the parsha: the beginning, on Pinchas's reactions, Pinchas's rewards, and also the appointment of Yehoshua and the concept of leadership in general, but mainly on Pinchas. The question which one can ask when one looks at and one tries to understand the message of Pinchas and Pinchas's actions is that it's difficult on a basic level to understand how we are meant to even relate to it. Pinchas is Nokim the Nikmas Hashem. he wreaks vengeance, he is the kanoyas kinosi. So he performs an act which is so radical. It's essential, but it's radical, right? Kanoim pogim, the idea of him getting up and killing these people in public. It seems difficult in a way for us to relate to. Are we meant to emulate this? In what way? And how? How can we relate to it? And you find a similar thing with other aspects as well. One example that I've seen discussed is at a very different level, but again, something that you can also ask a similar question. The story of Rabbi Akiva and his wife. And Rabbi Akiva goes off and learns, right? Yeah, for years, right? For years and years and years, right? And the story when he comes back home, and she says, well, I would like him to go back again. If he heard me and he's listening behind the wall, and he hears her say that I'd like him to go back and learn, and for double the same number of years again, and he goes back and he does the same thing again. Is there a story that we think, how are we supposed to relate that to our normal and regular lives? And there's a piece that I saw quoted from Rav Kook in his Sefer Oros HaKodesh, and he says that the reality is that the Derech HaChaim, the way we are meant to live, is, of course, the Derech HaMamutza we call the middle path, the idea of living Baruch HaTorah, the idea of living and thinking and reflecting on the way we should live. And of course, we live in a normal environment. We live in a normal world. We live in a world where it's not that we are finding these opportunities for vengeance or nikmas Hashem in these ways, or living a life like Rabbi Akiva, where he's, lives apart from his wife all those decades. But the point is, he says like this, that the way of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the way Hashem has created the world, is that there are unique individuals in this world who live genuinely on a different plane. They live on a plane that we find incredibly difficult to relate to, and they can do actions through their greatness, which seems in a way extreme. And indeed, if we were to emulate them in those ways, we would probably and likely get it wrong. But nevertheless, the fact is that they exist as what we call Yechidei Segula. That's what he says. These are unique, treasured and precious individuals, tremendous piety, Baalei Chasidus Mufloga, he says. And he says, Zosi Gamkein Michlal Tochon Kedushas Yisrael Sheyimtzu Ba'olam. It's part of the Kedusha of our whole people that these people should exist. And he says sometimes in the depth of Golus, of exile, it is these great people who show us the light and show us a pathway in life. And the point that he's trying to make is not that learning from them in the sense that we will ever find a way or be ever able to act or emulate necessarily in that same way. But what we can learn from, and what we have to learn from, is the fact that, and from these unique people, the fact that there are morals and values, for example, that exist in this world that are beyond anything else, that are more lofty and more spiritual and more essential. And through their lives, they teach us that. So that even though of course, we don't live our lives in that way all the time, but their existence teaches us to live on a different plane. And the reason why I think, again, this connects with the essence of particularly of today. Today is a Tanis, and today is a very difficult Tanis because the length. Shavos B'Tanis is always very difficult Tanis. Now, if we had this every day, we would not survive for all sorts of reasons. Right? But the message of a Tanis is that you can take one day and you can use that day to provide a message for the rest of the year and for every other day. That's part of the idea of a Tanis. That's part of the idea. So in other words, today is a day where we feel the void of what we are lacking, in the context of the Beis HaMikdash. How do we feel that? Because it's a tsar, it's a genuine pain. It's a sense of there's something missing. We're not able to eat and drink. It's a form of suffering in this way. We can't do this every day. But what we can do is try and capture on this day that there is a value here that is vital, that we need to carry with us, so that when we this evening end the fast, we end the tanis, we've taken something with us. And that's the afashbeish myself. That is the action of examining one's actions. That's the process of tshuva. It's, if you like, a bit of a shock to the system. It takes us out of our regular activity. And even though it's only a prompt, it's a chiyuv, but it's a prompt to tshuva, we can all understand that without the prompt, it wouldn't happen. You tell people just do tshuva, it's not going to happen. We need something that shocks us, it removes us, it takes us away from our regular existence. And that is, I think, a parallel to what we are trying to absorb and understand and internalize from the actions of Pinchas. Pinchas's actions are unique. They are hardly ever replicated, and if they were attempted to be replicated, they would probably be done incorrectly. And I'll talk about this and whatever. You have to be, the famous Gemara in Sota, which says there are people in this world who are oisim ma'aser zimri umavakshim schar kepinchas. This incredible phrase. It's a Gemara, right? The depth of meaning in that phrase. The Gemara says the people that tzvuin are people who are two-faced. Yeah. The oisim ma'aser zimri umavakshim schar kepinchas. They live a life like Zimri, right? But they want Pinchas's reward. In other words, what does that mean? You can't be a Pinchas unless you're completely a Pinchas. You can't live a life like a Zimri and then expect to be rewarded like Pinchas. You've got to be a Pinchas through and through. But I think that idea of taking a moment, with Pinchas it's a snapshot in time, it's an event. With us it's a moment in time, right? A day, a period of time, and saying this has a critical message for me, so that when I live the rest of my life, I can live with a value that this day or this event or this moment imparts. And Pinchas's great strength, of course, is the fact that he's able to take a feeling that other people feel and actualize it and act on it and know how to act on it. There's a beautiful Sfas Emes at the beginning of the parsha. The Sfas Emes says, going on the pasuk that says, the second pasuk, what does that mean? That he avenged my vengeance b'soichom, amongst them, right? What does that mean? What is the b'soichom amongst them? And he also said, and he links it to where it says the beginning end of Parshas Balak, when the action is described by Yokom mitoch ha'eda, right? He gets up from the Eda, from within the congregation, from the people, and he takes the spear. What is this emphasis on the Eda, on the congregation? Says this Sfas Emes. Everyone wanted to do this. Everyone wanted to avenge the desecration of Hashem's name, except those who were involved in it. Everyone else was looking on horrified. Everyone felt they wanted to avenge. Rak Pinchas, what Pinchas did was he was able to take this potential and actualize it. That was Pinchas' strength. Many people have a feeling, many people have a thought in life. I wish I could do this. I wish I could make this real. I wish I could actualize this. And then what do? They get on with their life. They don't do it. They just carry on with everything else, right? So he says, "V'yotza min haklal lelamid al kol haklal." Pinchas is literally mitoch ha'eda. He's literally removed from the Eda, but he comes from them. He's one of them. He's not different to them. There are thousands of potential Pinchases there. You understand? There are thousands of them, hundreds of thousands of Pinchases. But he is mitoch hakol. He steps up. That's what he does. They wept. Everyone was weeping because everyone felt the pain. That's how it is. But Pinchas stepped up. Says the whole, that is the link. Pinchas is rewarded with kahuna, as we know. He didn't have kahuna before, then he was rewarded. That's Brisi Shalom. He says this is the work of the Kohen. This is the avodah of the Kohen in the Beis Hamikdash. Shehoya shliach shel kol bnei Yisrael. That's how it works, right? Yisrael b'ma'amodo. It's a team effort. The ma'amodos, they stand with the korbanos, and they, and then you have the Leviim and the Kohen, right? It's all together. Ki kafia chonos libosh bnei Yisrael kach osa Kohen v'ovdal hotzim nakach al hapoel. The Kohen's job is to actualize it, but he depends on the way and the extent to which the hearts of the Bnei Yisrael are ready for it. The Kohanim are mitocha Eidah. They're not separate. They're part of the Kehillah. And that's why, beautiful, beautiful piece, very short, beautiful piece. And that's why Pinchas is rewarded with kahuna, because it's midah b'midah, midah connected midah. You understand? There has a whole Eidah there who wish and think this is terrible and need to act, and they don't, and he does, and he changes it and he acts, and he is nokim nikmas Hashem, and his reward is he begets the kahuna, because that's the role of the kohanim. The role of the kohanim is to channel, right, what is within the hearts of the Eidah, of the Bnei Yisrael, and actualize it, and stand there in the Beis HaMikdash, performing the avodah. And it's not their own avodah. It is literally everyone's avodah. So this is where we see, this is the message we see from the life of Pinchas. And again, just to continue the theme, link this to the 3 weeks, link this to the Chorban Beis HaMikdash. And there are, again, individuals who stand out. The one which came to my mind is Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. Good morning, Gittin. Those who learn it Daf Yomi will be learning it during the 3 weeks. That's right. All those Gemaras in Gittin about Kamsa and Bar Kamsa, it's coming here, which is quite a few time. So the Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, right, is one person. He's an individual, but he has the vision. He's able to actualize. He's taken out of Yerushalayim, and he stands there and he says, "Ten li Avnei v'chachomah," and he saves Klal Yisrael. That's what he does. There were lots of people who were working and thinking how to save Klal Yisrael. It wasn't only Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. There were other Talmidei Chachomim. What can we do? How can we have a future? What is going to be? Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai is the one who's able to actualize it. He finds the words. He says, "Ten li Avnei v'chachomah," give me Yavneh. He knows he's lost Yerushalayim, and as a result, there's a possibility of rebuilding. So this theme is one you can trace through. Another aspect of the 3 weeks, as we know, this time of year, is we're meant to focus very much on the sense of the respect we have for others, the way we treat others, the way we behave towards others. And again, I think that this ties very, very powerfully with that Rambam that we began with. The Rambam saying that the focus is to examine our deeds and Loshuv b'tshuva shlema. We know, and we know this from everywhere, how the primary avodah that we need to work on as we work towards the Elul Yom Neroim is in our interpersonal relationships. This is a tremendously important part of what it means to approach the Yemei Hadin. As we know, that's how one needs to. That is vital in terms of that preparation. And the Toras Chaim here picks up on the very strange fact, which again is these are psukim which we're so used to learning, or so used to hearing, we don't think about them. Pinchas is rewarded. And he gets the kunas olam, and then pasuk Yudala, the shame ish Yisrael kasher Zimri ben Solo. Another pasuk, the shame why Yisrael will come just Cosby Master. Yeah, why is that there? 2 whole psukim just giving their names. Number one, they could have been introduced in when it happened. It doesn't mention their names in the previous parasha. Why are their names delayed to this week's parasha? And why do you have to have 2 whole psukim spelling out who they were? The Toras Chaim says like this. Because he asked it as a memonach. Either way, if Hashem wants to tell you who they are, tell me earlier. And if not, then why say now? So he says like this. You know why they're only mentioned here? Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't want to disgrace even Rishoyim, the farsing, to publicize mi bali tvarim hamatoyovim. Who are these people who committed these despicable acts? And he proves it from the Makosha Sheitzin, right? We don't know who he is, right? Makosha Sheitzin, want to get? There weren't, Hashem didn't, the Torah doesn't reveal the names when the actions were performed. After it mentions Pinchas' actions, then it says that he didn't do this with an ordinary person. He did it with someone who was very prominent, And the Midianist woman was also a very prominent person to emphasize the Kiddush Hashem, to emphasize the fact that he was unafraid and the greatness of his actions. So it's a beautiful Toras Chaim. What he's saying is that, yes, of course, the Torah could have told us their identities when the actions occurred, but it's delayed to this point because it's only revealed when it's necessary. Because to reveal it at that stage was an unnecessary shaming of these individuals. Here it had to be revealed because here the Torah is spelling out the greatness of Pinchas' action. And the greatness of Pinchas' actions is determined and defined by who these people were. But it's not mentioned there. It's not mentioned there. It's an incredible thing. The last people you would think, right, to have some level of respect for their dignity would be Zimri, right? Would be Zimri and Cosby, right? The last people you would think that we have that. What are these people? The Chilul Hashem they created. They're the people you want to mention them straight away. You know, for the wickedness of their deeds. No, says the Toras Chaim, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that's not how Hashem operates. He doesn't want to be mezalzal. And therefore, we learn from here the concept and the massive importance of what it means to have kavod habrius, to understand what it means to treat people with dignity. People who we don't feel necessarily deserve dignity. Are they worse? Are they worse than Cosby and Zimri? Probably not. And that's a powerful message to begin this time with. The Stipler in the Sefer Birkas Peretz summarize an idea. The Stipler Sefer Torah is Birkas Peretz, and he asks a question about why it is, what it is about the fact that that Pinchas is given, or is described as because the fact that he saved Klal Yisrael. So in other words, there was a Magefa, right? There was a terrible plague, and as a result of Pinchas's actions, okay, Heishivas Chamosimi al Bnei Yisrael. So Bnei Yisrael were not destroyed. The plague ended. So the disciple asks, why wasn't Pinchas's actions alone? The fact that he avenged this terrible Chilul Hashem, that should be enough for his reward. Why is it that because he stopped the plague, that's why he got such a great reward? Why should that be? The Kiddush Hashem that he created should be enough. And the disciple answers that if you look at the Mishnah that we say every morning, right, or the Bryce that we say every morning, the Gemara in Kiddushin describes these things, why it is that we get a payrus, we get a reward for them in this world. And the common denominator amongst all of them is that there is only a reward, a physical reward, the payrus in this world, if there is also what he calls a hatova labrius, if there is also something that people benefit from through your actions, through these mitzvahs. That's the common denominator in in the entire list. The one that you've got asked a question on is Talmud Torah, and of course the answer is right? 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 We know the world wouldn't exist without the Torah, so that obviously that supports everything. So he says like this: if you look at the actions of Pinchas, it seems to be only Tov L'Shamayim. He avenges the vengeance of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and that he creates a Kiddush Hashem. Where's the Tov L'Brius? Where's the good for the rest of humanity? That should lead him to get a reward in this world. And that's the answer. The answer is that the Bris Kunas Olam, that is as a result of the fact that he stopped the plague, he stopped the Magefa. That was what led him to receive this reward. Since he saved Klal Yisrael, there is no greater good that he has done for that he has performed and that benefited the people. And as a result, he gets this instant reward in this world. That's why he gets the reward in this world. That's the idea of that. That's what the Stipler says. That's what the Stipler says. Just one more brief idea before we do a mincha. Just an idea that Soloveitchik says on. Let me just see if I can find it here. Yes, when you look at in the appointment of Yehoshua, it says that he placed his hands upon it. We're familiar with this, and he's told to place one hand, and he places both hands, right? Vayas Moshe Kashetz Vashem. So this is Perek Chov Zayin Pasuk Chov Beis Chov Gimel. Sorry. Vayismach Yodov Olav, and he places both hands upon him. Right? Why is it? And the Mepharshim discuss this. Why it is that it's both hands. Rashi says, "But Ayin Yofer, he wanted to give me even more. Yosef Yosef Mimash Mitzvah, more than he was commanded to do so." Soloveitchik says like this. He says there were two Masoros. There were two critical traditions that Moshe Rabbeinu conveys to Yeshua at this point. One, he says, and that's the two hands. One, he says, is the concept of Torah learning itself, what he calls lomdas, understanding how to learn. But the second Masorah is something more than that. It's something that goes together with it and as essential, and that's experiential. The idea of living and breathing and feeling what it means to experience Yiddishkeit, and him and his leadership to convey that to others as well. And he says that's what it means when it says, you shall give him some of your majesty. A person can incorrectly go through their experience as a Jew entirely intellectually, without feeling it, without having a sense of feeling and being alive with it. And that's a problem. That's not how we're meant to live. That's not how we're meant to lead. And he describes the fact that he was, and of course the Briskers were renowned for their intellectual prowess and brilliance in that area. But he said, he talked about this, I think, a number of times. He was raised in a Chabad village, Chabad town. And he often described how the peddlers would come home and he would listen to the singing in the shtibelach and everything else, and the warmth and the feeling of Yiddishkeit. He describes this in detail. And he says, you want to experience Shabbos, you have to know the halachas of Shabbos, and you also have to see what he describes, it's like a Hasidic shtibel for Shalosh Shudas. You have to feel it as well. It's not good enough. You have to bring that into your life as well. It's not good enough just to understand it intellectually. And he says that, and this will conclude, this is an educational philosophical problem that has weighed heavily upon me. To contemporary Orthodox Jews, the Torah is revealed in intellectual categories, in cold thought and logic. However, it has not merited being revealed in a living sensory mode, which causes both trembling and gladdening of the heart. They recognize the Torah as an idea, but they do not encounter it as an unmediated reality that one can taste, see, and feel. I can explain Yom Kippur to my students, he says. From an intellectual standpoint, there is much I can transmit. What I cannot pass on are the experiences that I myself underwent on those days. That's something you have to feel, something you have to live. And I think that's a nice way, in a way, to conclude these thoughts, because as we began with, the Rambam says, the idea of a Tanis is to work and understand the reason why the Tanis is a prompt. But the Tanis is essential because it's a feeling. It's there, it's real. We feel it, we experience it. And that's what prompts us to live our lives in a different way. That's what prompts us to lead us towards Tshuva. That's the hope and the aspiration. Amen. Avromi, let's start because Shkia's 9:19. Yeah, I'm not so Hasidish with the time of Shkia. What's that?